What's up, Youth United? I'm so excited you guys are here tonight and you're tuning into this message. I think we got something really good for us here tonight. I'm recording this Wednesday morning, so you're only watching this a few hours after I'm giving this message, but I'm just super excited to give this message. I want to start out with a story from my life from when I was a kid, and it comes from when I played football. Now, I'm not talking about when I played high school football for this story. I'm talking about when I was playing like Little League football. Think it like first grade through fifth grade is when I was playing. And so during this time, my dad was my football coach. I loved having my dad as my football coach. It's something that we still talk about today. We have that relationship to where we're able to talk about the stories and everything. I love having that aspect of it. But there was another dad who coached every single year from first to fifth grade, and his last name was Vider. So their name was just Team Vider. And so this team was incredibly good because Coach Vider's son, and your son is always on your team, Coach Vider's son, his name was Tyler, had a growth spurt way earlier than any other kid did in our age group. Now, in my head, I remember this kid being like 6'3" and probably like 250 pounds, but we were in like first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade. He was not that big, but he was way bigger than what I was, and you can see me as a person now. I was a pretty skinny kid back then too. And so I remember playing this team every single year, and this team was always super good because they had a good coach, a player who was bigger than everybody else, and a second player who was also bigger than everybody else. His name was Jake. And those two guys would just destroy teams every single year. I remember in second grade, I went from first grade being a lineman to second grade, I was a running back, which are two very opposite positions. Running back fit me much better. And I was getting ready. It was the first game of the season. I was running down the sidelines about to score my first ever touchdown. I was within 5 yards of the end zone. I was super happy, and I just get lit up before I even hit the end zone. And who was it? It was the coach's son, Tyler Vider. And we have a picture of it at my house where I'm getting hit from the side, and it's like my head stayed in the same place, my body was moving. And so it was seriously the first time in my life that I had ever actually been hit. I run back to the huddle afterwards. I'm in second grade, so I'm crying. And my dad's like, hey, you ready to go score a touchdown? I'm like, I guess so. And I scored a touchdown on the next play. But I just remember getting lit up by this kid. And then, so we ended up losing that game. Third grade, we played them again. We lost. Fourth grade, we played them again. What do you think happened? We lost. They were like the Alabama of our Little League sports team or sports league. They were incredibly good. Also, Roll Tide. And then fifth grade happened. And in fifth grade, we lost to them in the season, but we won a lot of other games. So we actually made the playoffs in fifth grade. And who do we get to play in the first round of the playoffs? We get to play Team Vider. And we're like, great. We're facing basically the best team over the last 5 years. And we have to play them in the first round. This opposition that we have, there's really no way we're going to beat them. Like, it is almost impossible to beat these guys. They had added another player who was just insanely good. They had three incredible players who could go on and play football, honestly, for a long time. And we're like, what are we supposed to do? Like, there's no way we can beat these guys. And honestly, we were kind of afraid. I was really afraid to play these guys. We're like, all right, let's go and play. We ended up forcing it to overtime. I remember in overtime, it played like college overtime where everybody gets a chance to score. They had the ball first, and we stopped them on like 4th and 2. It was awesome. And all of a sudden, we got our offensive opportunity. And at this point in fifth grade, I was playing the Z-back, which is like a wide receiver, which means I play out wide, away from everybody else. And the play call, it was like 3rd and 5 or something like that. We were playing like the 15-yard line. The play call was a Z reverse, which means when they hike it, it means I'm turning and I'm running behind the quarterback, and he's going to hand me the ball, and I'm going to run outside and get as far as I can. And during a Z reverse, you fake the ball to two other guys, and then they hand the ball actually off to me. And when they handed the ball off to me, I look, and everybody bit on the fake. And so everybody was going towards people who didn't have the ball while I was going the opposite direction, except for one kid. One kid did not bite on the fake, playing on the side I was running to. I bet you can guess who it was. It was Tyler Vider. And I was thinking, now that I think back to it, I'm like, getting flashbacks to getting hit as a second grader by this kid. And I was like, this is, seriously, if I score a touchdown here, we win the game. We beat the best team that has always beaten us. And so I ended up just actually, because he was a bigger kid, I was smaller and I was faster, and I just beat him to the end zone before he could tackle me. We ended up scoring. We won the game. Seriously, it was the greatest moment of my entire football career that went from first grade until my senior year of high school. That was the greatest moment I ever had, was beating this team as a fifth grader that had beaten us for 5 years. It sounds stupid, and you probably think, wow, he had a pretty boring football career. You're probably right, I did. But it was such an awesome moment. I still, obviously, still talk about it today as the greatest moment that I ever had playing football. Now, with that story in mind of facing an opposition and being afraid of something that you really can't necessarily control, I want to look into Matthew chapter 14 here. And we're going to be starting in verse 22. This is a story called Jesus Walks on Water. And I'm going to read it to you here. It says, immediately Jesus made the disciples get up into a boat and go ahead of him on the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up to a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone. And the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because of the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking alongside the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind and was afraid and beginning to sink, he cried, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why do you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down, and those who were on the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So we're going to break this down real quick. So what was happening was Jesus and his disciples had just gotten done feeding, as the Bible says, feeds 5,000. Now, 5,000 would have been about 5,000 men. There were more than just men there. So he just fed more than 5,000 people. And so there's a lot of people around, and immediately after they did this, Jesus says, "Hey, y'all leave. Y'all go ahead, and get on this boat and go. I'm going to hold back. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. I'm going to go shake some hands, maybe kiss some babies, that type of thing. And I'm going to go say goodbye to this crowd. Y'all just go ahead." And so they go ahead, they get in a boat, they start sailing. And Jesus is like, I'm going to take this opportunity to get a little bit of alone time and go and pray and just sort of, just even like a meditation type thing of just get some alone time and just relax a little bit. And so he climbs up a mountainside and he goes and prays. And so while his disciples are on the boat, the wind is against them. So you're thinking, okay, what does that matter? Well, these guys are sailing. And in order to sail, you need wind. And in order to sail, the wind needs to be going the direction that you're trying to go. And so these boats did not have very much technology in them, but they needed the wind to go this way, but the wind's going this way, and they're trying to go this way. And so they're not able to go this way because the wind is going this way. And so because the wind is going the wrong way, they are really struggling. And it almost starts a bit of a storm. It's to the point where the waves are a little more rocky than they should be. The wind is against them. They don't really know what to do, but they are really struggling. And then Jesus from the mountainside sees them and sees that they're struggling. He's like, "You know what? I'm going to go help them." And so, the rational thing would be to hop in a boat and start sailing towards them and get on their boat, maybe tie the boat off to the other boat. But no, Jesus was way cooler than that. Jesus is like, "You know what? I'm just going to walk out to them," and starts walking on water. While Jesus is walking on water, the disciples see him. Now, we don't know what this looked like. It doesn't describe what Jesus looked like at this time, but it doesn't say like there's a light behind him and he was kind of floating over water or anything like that. But to them, the only rational response to a guy on water is, it must be a ghost. And you can't really blame them. I mean, if there's a dude walking on water, what would you think? Because I'd probably think, it's a ghost. because there's no way that anybody's walking on water. And you're thinking, well, they should have known it was Jesus because this is what this kind of thing Jesus would do. They had no idea that it was Jesus. There is no way. Nobody had ever walked on water before. There was no way that they would have thought this is Jesus. And so they're like, oh crap, it's a ghost. They start freaking out. It even says that it's a ghost, they said, and they cried out in fear. They were afraid of whatever was coming after them. They were terrified of it. And then Jesus says, take courage, it is I. And they're thinking, who the heck is I? Like, who's I? Like what is the point of who's this I? And they're like, wait. Okay, well, who said this before? Okay, it's probably Jesus. Is that Jesus? And they're probably talking amongst themselves on this boat. There's 12 of them out there, and they're like, who is it? Is it Jesus? Hey, I think it might be Jesus. Why don't somebody say something? Peter, you're like our leader. Peter is one of the core disciples. If you think there's 12 disciples, there's kind of an inner circle of a couple who were just a little bit closer to Jesus. Peter was one of those that was closer to Jesus. Like, hey, Peter, you say something to the ghost that's Jesus. And so he's like, all right, I'll say something. I'm pretty brave. And so he's like, hey, if you're Jesus, tell me to come out to you, and I'll come out to you. Jesus says, all right, come on out. Let's go. I think it's Jesus calling the bluff of Peter, because I think Peter was not expecting Jesus to say, come and walk on the water, because, again, they had never seen anybody walk on water before. And so he's like, all right, well, he called me. I got to do what I said I was going to do. And so he steps over the boat, and he starts to walk on water. Now, that's incredible. Again, nobody had ever seen anybody walk on water before, and now all of a sudden, before their very eyes, two guys are walking on water, and Peter is walking towards Jesus. And I'm guarantee you his face is just growing, because he's like, this is awesome. No one's ever done this before except for the ghost / Jesus out there and me. And so he's walking on water, and as he's walking towards Jesus, he starts to get distracted because his fear starts to creep up on him. He starts looking around, and he's like, instead of looking at Jesus, he's looking at the wind and the waves. It's like, this is a little more rocky. Like, from the boat, it was pretty rocky, but now that I'm walking on this, it's way more rocky than I was expecting it to be. And so he's walking, and he starts to get a little bit afraid. And because he starts getting afraid, he starts losing faith in Jesus, who is the person that is helping him walk on water. And so it says he begins to sink. And as he begins to sink, his fear creeps up on him even more. Now that makes sense. I don't think he just, dropped real quick and was all of a sudden just drowning in the water, but he slowly begins to sink. And as he's beginning to sink, his fear creeps up even more and even more and even more. And it gets to the point where he is completely afraid of what's happening. And so he cries out to Jesus, and he says, Lord, save me. And as soon as he says, save me, Jesus is there. And he reaches out his hand, and he picks him up out of the water. And he says, you of little faith, why did you doubt? And they climbed into the boat, and everybody who was there began to worship Jesus, and they completely believed that he was the Son of God. Now, what can this look like for us? I think so much of the time we think, well, Jesus is telling us to go one way, and because Jesus is telling us to go one way, or I have a calling on my life in order to go and do something, then that something I am doing should be easy, right? Because Jesus is telling me to do it. If I feel like there's a calling on my life that is from Jesus, then it should be easy for me to head that way. But that's not guaranteed. And the disciples learn this here. Jesus is the one that says, hey, go ahead of me and go. Go to, they're going to Bethsaida. Go without me. I will catch up. He doesn't say how he's going to catch up, but he said, I will catch up to you. Y'all go ahead. And so they're thinking, all right, Jesus told us to go. We're going to go. And so they start sailing. They never expected that there was going to be an opposition, something against them that is preventing them from going where they want to go. And so when they're sailing and they're struggling, they really they're probably having the same thoughts that you have when something like this happens. You might be thinking, hey, I'm going to church every single week, and for some reason, things aren't easier for me. In fact, things are actually harder for me since I started doing that. Or you might be thinking, I've been in a relationship for a little while, and at YU, we just did a love, sex, and dating series, and we decided to put all those things into our relationship, and we decided to pursue a relationship that was God-centered, and it's been very challenging, but we decided to do it. And guess what? Our relationship still sucks. Like, we still fight. Like, why? What is the point of this? Like, we're doing the things that we were told that Jesus would want us to do, and this is still hard. Or it was so hard that we still broke up anyways. Because we were doing these things, it should have been easier for us. And that makes sense that we would think that way, and I think his disciples were thinking the same thing. Jesus was telling us to go somewhere, and so we are going to head that way, thinking no opposition would be against us. And then the wind happens. Now, right now, I think we have a pretty obvious wind. Right now, there is something preventing us to do what we would say Jesus would want us to do. I'd say COVID-19 or the coronavirus, that is our wind right now for all of us. It is preventing us from going to YU. It is preventing us from connecting with our friends. It's preventing us from watching sports. I turned on TV on Sunday, and I was wanting to watch some sort of sports. It's been like 2 weeks since I've been able to watch sports. And I just wanted to watch something, even an old game, and I turn it on. Guys, they had rock skipping on ESPN. It wasn't ESPN2 either. It was the actual ESPN. They had rock skipping. What? That's not a sport. That's something you do when you're bored while camping. And they had competitive rock skipping on ESPN. I need my sports back. This thing is taking out my sports. And guys, there's this one thing that is forcing us not to do the things that we have, as YU, have encouraged you to do for so long. You can't connect with your friends. Not in the way that we encourage you to as a one-on-one personal connection. You can't do any of that. And so we have this wind going against us as not only individuals, but also as a ministry. We don't know what to be doing. And so that right now is our wind. And when they're on the boat and they're struggling to go against this wind, and all of a sudden they look out on the water and there's a dude walking on the water. Now again, a lot of us know this story from when we were kids and we hear about Jesus walking on water, we're like, oh yeah, cool. We almost normalize it. And I cannot stress how crazy this would have been. I can't stress it enough. They were freaking out because nobody had ever walked on water before. And so they're freaking out about this, and they're terrified. They are afraid of the situation that is in front of them. And I would say we are afraid of the situation that's in front of us right now. Currently, there is no let up in sight of what we're hoping is going to come out of this COVID-19 issue. Yesterday, Donald Trump was on and said that he would like everybody back to work by Easter. Now, whether that's doable or not, that did give us a goal, but many people believe that will not be doable. And so because of that, we don't really know anything for a matter of fact. And for some of you guys who I know we have some pretty significant planners who are probably watching this video right now, for you guys, you're like, I just need to be able to plan when I can go back to work and when I can continue on with my normal life. And right now we can't do that. And then there's some of you who are like, you know what, I'm just going to go with the flow. And I'm a little more that way of we'll just figure it out day by day. But it's really scaring you no matter who you are, no matter which way you feel, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what's going to happen because we still don't know everything. I think that it's becoming a little bit more normal. Our lives are becoming a little bit more normal right now. But this thing, even though we're taking precautions, still continues to grow. Which means because it's still continuing to grow, that means we still have to take more steps in order to prevent that from happening. And so that can be kind of scary. I'm afraid of it. And so, like the disciples, they're staring their fear in the face because they think there's a ghost out there. They're terrified. They have no idea what is out there other than this could be some sort of spiritual being that is coming to haunt us. And Jesus says, no, don't be afraid. It is I. It's me. He's like, hey, y'all know me. And I bet you even then they still didn't believe him. That's why Peter challenges him. And Peter says, hey, if that's you, tell me to join you out there. I'll come out. Jesus says, all right, come on out. And so Peter is staring his fear in the face. I don't care what you think. Peter was still afraid because he had no guarantee that it was Jesus. Peter was still afraid. He's staring his fear in the face. And he takes a physical step. Reading this made me write down this saying, sometimes Jesus has to use our fear in order to grow our faith. Jesus was using their fear of what he could have been by walking on water in order to grow the faith of each and every one of the disciples who were there. Because it says at the end of this, when it says that they all bowed down and worshiped, and they said, truly you are the Son of God, which means they mostly believed it. They mostly thought he was the Son of God. But because now they truly believe it, because of this situation, because of this instant, they believed that he truly was the Son of God. And so sometimes in our fear, you can still find Jesus. I think you can probably guess where I'm going with this. With our current situation of where we are, not only as a community or a state or a nation, but as humanity in general, with where we are as a human being race, where can we find Jesus in our fear? Jesus is in the middle of this. I know it's so hard for us to understand, and that probably makes some of you mad even thinking about it, that why would Jesus have this happen? But sometimes it is within our fear that our faith grows the very most. And so right now, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to take a physical step into our faith, a physical step right into our fear, and step into our faith and show that my faith is greater than my fear, the same way that Peter does in this passage. Now, I understand that you might be like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I'm not in a boat and Jesus is not telling me to come and walk on water. What kind of steps can I take? Well, guess what? I have a couple steps that you can take. And one is very, very important for us to take as being a part of Youth United. And that step is connecting in your small group. Now, I know many of you are like, how am I supposed to connect in a small group? We can't be in a group of more than 10 people. And even then, they're saying that's kind of iffy. 10 is like a max. And that's being a little generous. We're not supposed to be, we're supposed to be socially distancing. And so we decided that we are going to do virtual small groups. This means we're going to be utilizing our Zoom call, which I'm sure most of you are using for school. And we're going to be able to have small group over a video call using Zoom. Now, guys, I know you're going to be like, that's kind of weird because our small groups are normally in person, like 1v1. Like we can talk to each other and we can hug each other if we need to. Or guys, which you guys just normally end up tackling each other more than hugging, but you can't tackle each other on Zoom call either. And it's gonna be a little bit awkward. I've been a part of 2 groups in the last week that are meeting for the first time over Zoom, and it was just a little bit awkward the very first time we did it because we're just used to being together, and this time we couldn't be. But guys, our very first step that we can do to step into our faith is by connecting in these small groups, because this is going to be a community of people that you can connect with that is also going to be building up their faith so that their faith is higher than their fear because of the current situations that we are in. That is the number one and the easiest step for us to take in order to take a step into our faith, because we are providing the resources 100% for you. Hopefully your small group leader by now has sent you a link to a Zoom call, and if they haven't, text them real quick. They have a link for you in order to do a Zoom call. And guys, you'll just be able to have your small groups, so we'll meet in the same type of fashion that we would, and they can go as long as you need. Because this week you may not need that much. But in 4 weeks from now, if it's still going on, you might really need that personal connection. And so guys, this is the easiest way for us to grow our faith in a time where it feels like our faith isn't growing. I have 2 other ways that you could also take a step into your faith. Relevant is putting together a response team, which is called the Relevant Response Team. And I encourage you as your small group to go and to sign up for this response team. Basically what it is, guys, in our community there are people who are sick. We also have people who are older and who are more at risk for becoming sick if they went out in public. And so as a response team, we want to be here in order to help people who are not able to help themselves. Now, this doesn't only mean people who are older or people who are sick. This could mean a couple different things. But guys, Youth United wants to be a part of helping our community in this time of need. And so you guys have the opportunity as a small group to sign up and make sure that you guys are signed up for this response team. And you guys can serve our community as a group of high school students. And it would give you an opportunity to maybe connect in person with people who care about you. The third way you can do it is by giving. Now, we don't talk about giving very much because a lot of you do not have very much. I understand that. I was obviously a high schooler at one point. I worked at Dairy Chef all the way through high school, and I didn't make, great money, but I did make some money. And guys, one of the best ways that our faith can grow is by giving some sort of financial, just giving some sort of money to Youth United or to Relevant as a whole. Now you can do it, you can give to anybody. I'm just saying because of where we are and this whole situation, this might be an obvious place for you to give. Now I'm not saying if you're getting paid $150, give $100. I don't expect that from anybody. But guys, giving just a little bit of what God has given you will grow your faith in a way that you can only imagine. All the way through high school, I never gave. And it is so hard for me as a 22-year-old to give, because I like to think the same way probably many of you do is, I worked for this, I deserve it. And so I'm going to use it to benefit me. But guys, when I have been able to give, it has changed my life in a way that only giving could do. And so I encourage you to consider doing that. And if you decide I want to do that, it's super easy to give. You can just go onto Relevant's website, and it'll say right there, it'll literally have a button that just says, I want to give. And you can click that button. It's very easy, very secure to give online. It is 100% secure, 100% safe. Your small group leaders probably do it every week. So guys, I just want to encourage you with those 3 things. Number 1 being connect with your small group. If you're not going to do any of them, or if you only want to do one of them, do that one. Connect with your small group because you're going to need it, even if you don't think you need it right now. Number 2, sign up for that response team that Relevant is providing. And number 3, if you have the ability to, give some sort of finances over to and back to God. If you have somewhere else you want to give that's not relevant, do that. But I encourage you to give. Also, as we have continued talking about this faith over fear mentality, I understand that I think you guys could see where taking our faith is big here and taking it over our fear is very important. Guys, I want to continue to encourage you, don't just stop with last week. Last week was really cool to see people writing faith over fear on their hand. I don't want that to stop. You saw the one that was written on my hand. It wasn't very artistic because I am not very artistic. But guys, some of the ones that you did were awesome. And art is one of the best ways for you guys to express yourselves and be able to express the fact that your faith is higher than your fear. So guys, I really want to encourage you, continue with that phrase, continue sharing it. If you are an artistic person, continue to make some cool faith over fear things. And share them on your social media. If you don't feel like sharing them on your social media, share them to me at youthunited@relevantcommunity.org. Email them to me. And I really want to see those. I want to see those, and if I have your permission to share them on our YU page, guys, I want to be able to show our community that we care about our faith being higher than our fear. So I don't want that to stop with last week. That was just one step that we could take last week, was writing that on our hands. But I want you guys to continue to do that. And honestly, guys, if they look cool, that's going to be awesome. If they look cool, people are going to look at it and think that's awesome. And they're going to want to actually pursue that because they look awesome. And honestly, I love tattoos. You never know. You make a really cool one, you never know what's going to happen. Now, guys, I just want to encourage you, do one of those three things and continue talking about your faith being higher than your fear to your friends on social media. Or when you're talking to them while you're playing video games, or you talk to them on the phone, or you're texting them. Guys, talk about that, because everybody's experiencing a pivotal circumstance right now. And right now, we are more available to having a faith in Jesus, because the faith that we had in other things, those other things just aren't happening. Those things are failing, but Jesus will never fail us. So guys, in just a moment, once this talk ends at about 7:30, we are going to be meeting in our virtual small groups again. Hopefully your leader has sent you a link to their small group. If they haven't, check out the link in the description of this video, because that link will send you to a group that Seth Monteith will be leading. That is for brand new students who have never been part of a group before, or if you don't know where to go, we can also navigate you to where you're supposed to go after that. So guys, please go join your small group, go have some fun connecting with them, and I'm going to pray for us and then be ready to join in with your virtual small group. So let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for just this opportunity to present another sermon about faith over fear and how our faith needs to be higher than our fear in this situation. God, I pray for this group of students that were here watching, that they would connect in their small groups, that they would feel that personal connection that we are so desperately missing right now, and we are so desperately longing for. God, I pray that we are able to connect with one another, that we are able to just be filled by you, God, and that we are able just to see some transformation happen in our lives in a time where it feels like nothing is happening. May we all be back here again next week so that we can continue to connect and grow in our faith. And in Jesus' name we pray, amen. We'll see you later, you guys.